Subscribe to this channel and tap the bell icon so we can continue this journey of resting with the Holy Spirit every night together. God bless you. The morning Marcus Elliott was fired, it rained. Not a soft, forgiving drizzle, but the kind of rain that comes down in sheets, the kind that finds every gap in your umbrella, soaks through your shoes, and makes you feel like the sky itself has turned against you. He sat in the parking lot of Monroe and Associates for 40 minutes after clearing out his desk, watching water stream down the windshield, unable to make himself drive away. 11 years. He had given that company 11 years of early mornings, late nights, and missed birthdays. He had passed up a job offer in Atlanta to stay loyal. He had trained half the team that now sat in his former office. And in one sterile 20-minute meeting, with HR present and the door carefully shut, it was over. Restructuring, they called it, as if naming it something corporate made it less of a wound. He drove home in silence. No radio, no podcast. Just the rain and the hum of tires on wet asphalt. His wife, Diana, didn't say much when he told her. She sat across from him at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea, and listened. That was one of the things Marcus had always loved about her. She knew the difference between the moments that needed words and the moments that needed presence. This was a presence moment. "What will you do?" she finally asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. For the first 6 weeks, Marcus applied everywhere he could. He updated his resume, rewrote his cover letter a dozen times, called every contact in his phone. He sent out 43 applications. He received 9 polite rejections. The rest were silence. The worst kind of answer, because silence leaves you no one to argue with. He started waking up at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, doing math in his head. How long could they last on savings? What would they have to sell? Could they pull the kids out of their activities? The questions multiplied like weeds. His pastor, Elder Thomas, noticed the change in him one Sunday after service. "You look like a man carrying something too heavy," the old man said, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I'm fine," Marcus said, the standard lie. Elder Thomas smiled, the way wise people smile when they see through you. "Come sit with me." They sat in the empty front pews as the congregation filed out. The sunlight came through the stained glass and painted diamonds of color across the floor. "You know," Elder Thomas began, "I've seen many people in your position over the years, and most of them make the same mistake." "What mistake is that?" "They spend all their energy trying to force a door that God has already closed." Marcus looked at him. "Are you telling me to stop trying?" "No. I'm telling you there's a difference between pursuing your path and running from your pain." Elder Thomas folded his hands. "Sometimes what feels like your blessing being blocked is actually your blessing being redirected. You're standing at a wall, knocking yourself raw, when behind you, Marcus, there is a door wide open. But you won't turn around to see it because you're too focused on the wall." Marcus drove home thinking about that. He wasn't sure he believed it. It sounded like the kind of thing people said to make suffering feel meaningful, and suffering, in his experience, was not always meaningful. Sometimes it was just suffering. The turning point came on a Tuesday, from the most unexpected place. His daughter Zoe, who was 9 years old and possessed of an unsettling confidence that Marcus envied, had been assigned a school project. Interview someone about their job and explain it to the class. She chose her father. "But I don't have a job right now," he said. "I know," she said simply. "I want you to tell me what you wish you did." He laughed. A real laugh. The first one in weeks. "What?" "Ms. Patterson said the best interviews are when people talk about what they love. So what do you love, Dad?" He thought about it longer than the question probably deserved. What did he love? Not the spreadsheets, not the quarterly reviews or the performance management cycles, not the budget meetings or the org charts. He loved the moment when something broke and became fixed. He loved the puzzle of it, the diagnosing, the rebuilding, the satisfaction when a broken system clicked back into order. At Monroe and Associates, those moments had been rare, buried under years of administrative weight. But early in his career, years ago before the promotions and the responsibilities, he had been the person they called when something went wrong. He had been the problem solver. He told Zoe all of this. She recorded it seriously on her little tablet, nodding like a journalist. "So why don't you do that?" she asked when he finished. "Do what?" Fix things for yourself, not for a company. He looked at his 9-year-old daughter. She looked back at him, impatient in the way children are when adults complicate the obvious. The idea didn't arrive fully formed. It arrived in pieces, the way most real things do. Marcus started small, consulting for a friend's struggling restaurant, auditing their operations, finding where money was leaking out. He charged almost nothing at first, barely believing in himself enough to charge anything. But the restaurant stabilized. Word spread. A friend of a friend called. Then a small manufacturing company. Then a tech startup whose founders were brilliant builders but terrible managers. Within 8 months, Marcus Elliott Consulting was not just a dream. It was a business, a real one, with real clients and real invoices and a real reason to get up in the morning. Within 18 months, he was earning more than he ever had at Monroe and Associates. And more importantly, he was working in a way that felt like his hours, his clients, his choices. One evening, he came across his old employee badge while cleaning out a junk drawer. He turned it over in his hands. The photo showed a younger man, more certain looking, in the way people look when they don't yet know how much the ground can shift. He set the badge on the counter and stood there for a moment. "You okay?" Diana asked from the doorway. "Yeah," he said, and this time, it wasn't the standard lie. "I actually am." He ran into his former boss, Gerald Monroe, at a hardware store the following spring. Gerald had aged, not drastically but noticeably, in the way that happens to people under sustained pressure. He had recently, Marcus had heard through the grapevine, lost 2 major clients. "Marcus," Gerald said, extending his hand. "I heard you've been doing well." "I have been," Marcus said. There was a pause that was not entirely comfortable. "I want you to know," Gerald said, "that the decision to let you go, it wasn't personal. The board made certain demands." "I know," Marcus said, and he meant it. He had spent a long time being angry at Gerald, but anger, he'd learned, was expensive. It cost you sleep and peace and focus, and it didn't change a single thing that had already happened. "For what it's worth," Gerald added, with something that might have been genuine, "I think it worked out for you." "It did," Marcus said. He paid for his light bulbs and walked out into the afternoon sun. He thought about Elder Thomas's words often in the years that followed, about walls and open doors, about the things that feel like punishment but are, in fact, rerouting, about how the blessing you're expecting and the blessing you actually need are rarely the same shape. He was not a man who believed that everything happens for a reason, that it always felt too easy, too dismissive of real pain. But he did believe this, that sometimes the thing that ends is making room for the thing that matters. That sometimes the road being closed is the most important thing that ever happened to you, not because the road was bad, but because you never would have found the better one unless you were forced to look. His blessing had been blocked, and then, slowly, beautifully, it had been redirected. He had only needed to turn around.